All right. So today's session specifically is in reference to troubleshooting Windows. My favorite little screen back in the 90s when Windows, I think it was 95 and 98 and all these didn't have enough memory. I think that's an XP. Looks like from a little start menu there, huh? That little, what was the card game that I said last time?
There,
Solitaire. Yeah, I
solitary.
always
Yeah.
call it the solitaire. Yeah, it was when you won, but obviously that wasn't a good thing if you won that in Windows. Although Windows is one of the most stable, supposedly, and reliable OSs for PCs nowadays, we obviously need to assist these clients in many ways. There are still a number of potential issues that actually come up uh, when utilizing Windows itself. By the end of this session, we want to learn and identify, troubleshoot, and ultimately resolve a variety of common issues that may arise. Ultimately, describe how to resolve the common issues using the appropriate command lines and administrative tools and system utilities, and name which CLI and admin tool or applet system utility to use in any given scenario itself. Okay, this little thing clicking away. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can see this. Overall, there is a plethora of software, complex and multifaceted issues that we can run into. Additional, there are many places where things can go wrong. We need to be persistent. This makes us obviously have to deal with team to be able to get things done, especially in these Fortune 500 companies. A lot of the times, you may have only authority to do certain things. Yes, you are a technician that does and can fix things, but your ID is unable to do this. So you will obviously have to have a very strong teamwork mindset to be able to also communicate clearly to your team what is happening, to be able to properly plan an action and obviously facilitate the client's downtime. Ultimately, one of the things that we want to have in our action plan would hopefully be a good backup. We want to be able to make sure that we back up all the information before we obviously proceed and to be able to even go further, especially if we're running into these issues that we're running into nowadays. Sorry about that. Forgot to click the little button. And I believe I said what was in there from my memory. Hey, look at it. This not bad. They say sometimes I can blab into good things.
Were you good? You
Questions, questions, doubts so far. So what are we going to be covering overall with all this mumbo jumbo I just said? Well, we have the actual proprietary crash or blue screen of death. We'll get into the details, but ultimately it's when an OS itself detects an internal issue, it can safely recover from. So it knows something's about to go and it issues a kernel, what they call panic attack, and obviously halts all processes to prevent from data corruption and or obviously whatever catastrophe is trying to deal with. Obviously in Windows they call this the blue screen of death, but it itself it is a kernel panic within Linux, if I remember the correct terminology. We're also going to be covering failure to boot, improper shutdowns. As we know, a lot of these new OSs need to be shut down properly. We can't just go and just pull a plug and or just hard shut down. We should do a soft shutdown or reboot, right? Other thing that we'll be covering is the spontaneous shutdown or restart. Sorry, excuse me. Device that fails to be detected, services fail to start, your DLLs that may be missing, slow performance. It may obviously just go straight into safe mode. and maybe some files, excuse me, are just failing to open. Another thing that we're going to be covering towards this session is the number of tools available to be able to troubleshoot these OSs. And these may include your actual BIOS, or nowadays is the modern one is UEFI, your SFCs or system file checkers, if we remember that one, your logs, recovered consoles, repair disks, pre-installation environments, MS config, safe mode, and command prompt. As I stated, as an IT professional, we need to be persistent as much as we can. And especially in these difficult situations where it's not going to be easy, it's not just going to be a quick fix. We have to be able to, obviously, whenever we find out that maybe whatever it didn't work, go back to that step of troubleshooting where we then obviously come up with a new theory and repeat and rinse and spin. Again, if you can't resolve it yourself, teamwork is key. You need to understand when you need to seek out to your colleagues and to be able to even escalate to a supervisor. Obviously, if there's a roadblock that needs to be removed, usually there's no necessary to go to your supervisor. You have colleagues and or second level or third level support. You go to your supervisor and or manager when obviously you've hit a roadblock where people are refusing to help or time is of the essence. Questions, concerns? I believe I pass it to Marvin, I think.
I will take that baton. Since we're talking about teamwork, I'm gonna get Faison to read my next slide for me. Just the text. Don't worry about that blue.
Okay. A blue screen error happens when processing running into kernel mode encountered a problem and Windows must stop. It also known as a stop error or blue screen of death, BSOD. A stop error at the top and the specific number of the error at the bottom will help with troubleshooting.
Thank you, Faison. Blue screen of death. The infamous blue screen of death. I'm looking at your faces. It has majority of us seen this screen or some screen in that. Yeah. Okay. Chris, what was it pertaining to? Do you know do you remember, or was it, I'm gonna get
Many
at least
times.
Yeah, okay.
Usually some sort of software conflict.
Got you. Did I see you, David? Did you shake as well? Did you recall? Okay. It's at one point in time when we saw this screen, there's a sense of anxiety that comes up, because you don't know what it could be. You don't want it to be the worst of things, which could be as bad as like just a corrupted drive to the point where you have to do something super invasive and intense. You want it to be something that maybe just another restart could address. But let you know, you're not alone. We've all been there, and we have several options that can address it. That stop number is typically available with it correlates with a code or an actual word. And I wanted to go to this website to show.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did anybody notice what that code is always? If you could go one screen back, can somebody tell me what is that code? It's machine language. What is that code there? Error OE colon 016F colon BFF 9B3D4. What is that?
Hexadecimal.
Thank you.
Good job,
Right.
Chris. The next screen was it's a website with common codes that people have seen them, and it started from 0000001 all the way down. I think Microsoft has at least 350 known codes, and they vary from I think they run the whole gambit. The next slide here actually are some common errors that we we see. You don't see your actual stop code, but it will be here as well. But we have what that error was and a resolution to address that error. So you're not alone. And typically all you have to do is take a deep breath, write down that stop error or the actual name that's associated with it, and go where? To our favorite place. 8.8.8.8 or Google. So, and talk to the million of people who've already addressed this issue online and choose as we always try, choose the least invasive first and work your way down. You'll be
And
surprised
Microsoft usually has the code reference.
as
So
well.
if you put the code in Microsoft search inside their database for common errors of the OS, they usually give you whatever it is.
So they can help you equally as quickly. So it's not something that you should be too, you're concerned about, but don't get overly worked up. But the neat thing also is before you even go there, there's other places you can address too. Your computer actually will have a lot of options for you as well. If I can get Chris, if you'll read this one for me.
Tools to troubleshooting blue screen of death. There are many Windows tools that can be used to help find a solution to a problem with the system. Many technicians use a 6-step troubleshooting process to help solve PC-related problems. To solve blue screen stop errors, use the following tools to examine the system and solve the problem. Use the web to search the error code on the blue screen of death. Check Event Viewer after restart to look for errors. Windows updates to apply patches to the OS. System Restore if unsure which changes to undo. Memory Diagnostics tools to check memory. Check disk to check the hard drive for errors.
Thank you, sir. So you have a plethora of options available. And like I said previously, typically searching that code online will probably give you a good lay of the land of how to address that situation right off. But that's not your only option. The event viewer houses all issues that will happen in the PC. You can check that, but what if you can't actually access the event viewer? You'll result to another option, maybe even doing a system restore or addressing the memory. Memory can also be a lot of some of the issues that we have with those BSODs also. So there's multiple ways to skin the cat, I guess, not to be
Good
cliche.
question.
Go ahead, sir.
Usually, to me at least, I've usually had simply a blue screen of death. I shut down, reboot, and everything's back to normal again. Is that something that they're going to kind of realize in the test, or is the test really going to go through the fact of after blue screen of death, you really need to try and figure out why?
This is
it doesn't always correct it from a restart. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say this is a lot of for your information type deal too, Chris, just to get an understanding of the options that you do have. I don't recall any type of stop code or issue and what you should do in that case type situation. This is more so what's in your arsenal, what's available, and they have that in a question form, like, can you try this or that type deal?
And there's no way you're gonna know that hexadecimal code means something. That's not happening. What they're gonna want you to know is obviously what are the as he stated, the tools or what we should do to be able to resolve the issue. So if they don't give you any of these options here, and they tell you restore from a backup instead of a system restore, we know that a system restore would be a snapshot, right? So that would be just recovering not from a backup. That's the type of things that they'll try to trick you on to see if you know exactly what are these tabs that are here or bullet points.
Kelly, did you want anything else, or that was good for you?
Well, no, he was saying that typically you just do a restart and that gets rid of the both side error. That's not typically been my excuse. I mean, he actually had instances in class where it was giving the error before you could even get to the splash screen for Windows and not allowing you to proceed any further. And we ended up having to get the code, find out where we needed to, what the code meant, look it up, and then go into the BIOS and fix the problem before we could even fully boot into Windows. So a restart won't always get rid of it. It's just know that on that screen, it gives you the information you need. And an easy trick, if it is booting real fast, it just uses that real quick, flash of the blue screen. Film it on your phone, and then you can pause it when you get to the screen and see the actual code. Because sometimes, especially on newer computers where they're booting much faster, it'll throw up that blue screen for like a split second, and you won't get to see it.
I agree. Alvarez. Sure.
All right, more actions to troubleshooting blue screen of death. After a restart, a Windows error message box might appear with useful information. Undo any recent changes. If a device driver or service that caused the problem is listed, use Windows Explorer to locate the program file. You can try to reinstall the device or program. Check archive messages in the Action Center.
So that's more of the same. Address the issue by acknowledging the error and moving appropriately using the tools that we've discussed. Appreciate you, Alvarez. All right. Ronald. You here, sir? Okay.
All right. When a computer fails to boot, it is necessary to determine whether the problem relates to hardware or software. In this screen, the OS hasn't even started, so the problem is hardware related or wrong boot order in the BIOS.
That one was too simple, so I'm gonna go to the next one, and I'm gonna let you get that one as well, Ronald.
All right. Tool for troubleshooting failure to boot. If it doesn't boot because the OS is corrupt, access Windows recovery environment. Different ways to access the Windows recovery environment. Boot from Windows installation media and select repair. Using repair your computer option on the advanced boot option. Using a system repair disk created before the problems.
Thank you, sir. So you have certain options that you can actually address if you see that particular string, if it's a failure to boot. I feel like I have, well, I don't see my extra slide. So what I'm gonna do is, if I can take over, Diego, that'll be great. To either repair that computer, that's the Windows reinstallation, that media that they're speaking of. Not just, you can use it not to just install, you can repair. That's an option there. That's Windows 7. But then we also have that same version for, where are we? And you come here, you have an option to do advanced options, and you can do a startup repair to address that also. So you have options, and Windows tries its best to assist along the way to give you some tools to address whatever issue that you're experiencing. Where am I? Go back to,
Bring back on? Oh, okay.
yeah, I think it is. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are on failure to boot and other OSs. I'm not a Mac person. Kelly and maybe some other people can speak for this, but the fact that you do have an option to go Command plus R to address or to access that recovery environment, to try to look to some tools that will assist with that issue. And Linux also has options as well. So you Grub and Lilo are the booting managers. And if it's corrupted or deleted, there's a message and there's a way to address it.
Sorry to interrupt. You think you can make the screen a little bit bigger? It looks small on our side.
Okay, let's see here. That's better.
Still looks the same. Looks like you're like on a mobile.
Let's see here.
I can. I'll share it real quick.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
That did it.
We lost it. Oh, there we go.
All right. This is Diego. Okay, so I can go back to mine. All right. And there go my pictures. So they were there. I just didn't have them in the right place. Look at me. I knew I put them there. K Dunn, if you don't mind, just the top.
A rogue system will begin automatically shutting down and or restarting while in use. While it could be an inactive with hardware problem, it can also indicate a setting misconfiguration problem.
Thank you, ma'am. So you could have issues with not shutting down, like Diego said earlier. And could it be hardware? Could it be software? We don't know. So if it is, typically the hardware ops areas that you will want to check will be, of course, the memory. The power supply is also something, the video card and the CPU, just to name a few. And those issues happen, and these are some of the reasons why. The event viewer may let you know about a hardware failure if you can actually get it to the event viewer. That's the thing all the time. A lot of times, if it's a memory issue, like the computer that I was playing around with just today in my house, you will have to run that memory. It wouldn't even let me start it up. It actually, I had to take it out, and then it actually started up, and it said the memory changed. But then I started to do my own research and realized that there was two different speeds that I was trying to use in one, and it did not marry well. So running some type of a memory diagnostic will also give you a heads up as well. And we talk about overheating too. Overheating will cause the system to shut down because it's trying to protect itself. So that's another thing that you'll see, especially with laptops. I know that's a lot. Like past laptop would actually put up a notice when I tried to restart it, said systems overheating or systems too hot to start, which is kind of neat. And the fact that you know that's the issue and it's trying to protect itself is important, because now you know how to address it. We need to figure out how to stop it from overheating. I'm gonna get, let's see here. Marcus, if you will, just the top.
Symptom 4, endless shutdowns and restarts. If caught in an endless cycle of restarts, boot into safe mode, where you can change the Windows setting to control automatic restarts.
Thank you, sir. Not something that I've dealt with personally, but the fact that now you know, if you didn't know, that by going into safe mode, you can address how quickly it's trying to restart on you, because it's removing all of the extra stuff and just going directly as low level as possible, and it'll give you opportunity to address the situation. So test Kahoot question for sure. So just keep your antennas up with that, because like I said, I wasn't, I never had to deal with that, but I didn't know that that was one of the easiest ways to address it too. So if you have a computer that's trying to continually restart, if you could F8 or whatever hotkey that will allow you to boot in safe mode, you can actually stop that cycle. And I'm pretty sure there's a number of reasons why it will continue to try to do that, but it's good to know. All right. Mr. Putnam, if you would do the honor, sir.
Yes, I will try. Usually when devices fail to start or are not detected by the system, the problem involves drivers. Drivers are associated with devices and they can be accessed by looking at the properties for the device. The three most common tabs of an adapter's properties dialog box in Device Manager are General, displays the device type, manufacturer, and location. It also includes information regarding whether the device is working properly. Driver displays information on the current driver and digital signer. 5 command buttons allow you to see driver details, uninstall the driver, update the driver, or roll back the driver to the previous driver when a new driver causes an issue. Resources shows the system, resources in use, IO, IRQ, and so on, and whether there are conflicts.
Thank you, sir. I'm gonna see if I can steal this right quick. Let's see if it'll let me. I know we're all used to seeing this when we go to Device Manager, and you're able to see that little hyphen or like exclamation point, and it's yellow. And if you know that you just added a device, or if by any chance the network adapter is not working, and you come here and you see that exclamation point, you know that there's a communication issue. Either roll back or check for. And a lot of times to address this, you can just download the most recent driver for that piece of hardware, and it should resolve. I know Diego just recently told us today about his earpieces. What did you have to do, Diego, to resolve that situation?
Yeah, I had to install the latest driver so that my Bluetooth headset, I could actually higher the volume. Now I can hear you guys. I don't look like if I have a missing earpiece or something every 5 seconds.
So his issue wasn't that, and I'll get to you, Marcus. His issue wasn't that it wasn't working; it wasn't working well, and that driver gave him more options to utilize. Which, if you think about it, if he bought it out of the box and it's a year, 2 years old, even though that's not Diego's style, it doesn't have the most recent drivers if present. It has what was there at the time. So as things got updated with Windows and other things, you get the opportunity to update that as well.
So basically, I could only have what was the default, which was horrible. It felt like if I had 19 something little headsets that didn't have anything at all. All I had was the default where you could raise the volume. But now over here in the levels, this is all I had. Enhancements are now available to me. I can change the settings on how it actually boosts, how it's going to create the virtualization. If I want to put it as a studio, jazz club, concert hall, it'll do echo effects. And my favorite, the actual short or loud, making it louder for us deaf people that seem to love bass for a little bit too loud.
And that all came from a driver that wasn't there original. Marcus, you had something for us?
Just a question. I've had the issue where I knew my mouse, I could customize the options on my mouse buttons. And I kept trying to update the driver, and I did, search for latest driver, and it told me you have the latest driver available. But when I actually went to Microsoft Keyboard and Mouse Center and downloaded and installed the driver myself, then it worked. So where is it crawling, or where is it searching for those drivers when it tells me that it searched and it has them already installed?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, which is a good thing and a bad thing, Windows has a thing that they call an HCL, hardware compatibility list. They have a default driver for an X amount of equipment. So whenever you say update driver, if you ever got the HCL one, it's only going to update the HCL, not the real one. Hence the problem I had. As soon as I went and got the real drivers from the actual manufacturer instead of from Microsoft, but in your case, it was a Microsoft. Like take a keyboard, maybe, and you got it from them directly. Although Microsoft, you would think would talk to itself. God only knows that would be easy, but hopefully that
So
helps. So that hardware compatibility list makes it easy for us to be able to install anything. But if we want all full functionality, our best bet is to go to that manufacturer site and actually install the real driver.
So can I do that initial search offline? Like if I didn't have an internet connection, is it searching for the HCL on my computer?
Both. It's the HCL on your existing computer, and if necessary, you'll go and just like when it usually goes and says, "Hey, I got an update for you." You just
Okay.
got an update.
Windows has
Um,
tons of default drivers built right into it that
Mhm.
installs when you do the installation of Windows.
Okay,
Correct.
that makes sense.
And
Thanks.
it updates those drivers always. Those are the drivers that it's updating on your own PC, the HCL list.
and if you think about it, if you didn't have that, if that wasn't available and you didn't have internet, and most people, most devices now, be it printers, give me something else.
A
A
mouse.
lot of that is
Mouses,
not, you don't,
keyboard.
it's not there.
Nothing
Yeah,
you would
you
have
don't have a
been.
disk
You had to
anymore.
install all drivers before manually.
So it's good to have it there to at least give you the baseline use, and then you can go to their site if you have access or have those drivers. You're bringing them in. You can customize it. You have more utility there. So very good question, Marcus, because you're right. If you get what is it? Check for driver updates wherever the thing is. Oh, every your all the way update. No, that's not always the case. You will have to go to that site and bring in that driver directly, and you can always roll it back if it doesn't resolve your situation. All right, here we go. Good question too. Let me come here, blah blah and blah blah. Here we go. All right, Alimu, sir.
Troubleshooting, device failed to start or not detected. If the problem is with the device driver, an updated driver version can be found on the device manufacturer website. Be careful to download and install the proper driver for the OS. The most common driver-related device issue in a device failure when a new driver is installed. If this occurs, you can use the rollback driver option in a device manager or boot into the last known good configuration.
Thank you, sir. Marcus, it seemed like that one was right for you, right? Like this is made for you. So a lot of issues can be addressed going directly to the manufacturer if you have access to it. And it gave you a disclaimer, be careful, because you want to make sure that you're downloading and trying to install a 32-bit driver or 64-bit driver. You want to know all of the nuances that's required with that driver to ensure that it's compatible to your device and for the system that you're using it on. But nicely that we have the rollback option in the device manager too. This is another, this is from Windows 10. I thought I had one for both, but this is Windows 10. It's noticing that it has a driver that's there and it needs to restart for that driver to actually work. So there's things that can come up in your troubleshooting, one of those applets that we have that will acknowledge the update of a driver or a driver that needs some addressing. So I think I put this in twice. So we'll just disregard that. All right, missing DLL. Let's see here. Anybody know what DLL stands for? Kareem.
Dynamic linking library.
That is correct. Chris, thank you. Kareem, I just wanted you to read for me.
Yes,
If you're
sir.
available.
Yes. Missing DLL message. One of the more useful error messages you can receive is one indicating a missing DLL file. It's useful because it tells you exactly what's missing. DLL files are shared by various components. If they're missing or corrupted, you will receive an error message whenever you do something that requires a file. Make note of the file name of the DDL and its location. You can copy DLL from another machine if the systems are at identical patch levels. Place them in the same location and the problem should be fixed.
All right, thank you, Kareem. So in a corporate industry setting, you roll out a lot of PCs with the same information, just different credentials or different software packages that's for those particular departments, if that. So you have that DLL and you notice that it's missing, you could go to another PC in that room, copy it, and bring it back over to resolve the issue. But, and I can honestly say, it's probably as simple as that. Then it, in some instances, you may have to dig a little deeper, but I'm almost positive, what is it, rigid files? Let me go, it's on the next slide. Okay, older versions of Windows use the Red Server 32 to address this. So, and I recall dealing with those entries, but the DLL, like Chris said, is the dynamic link library. And if you can't just copy that DLL, you can just reinstall that application. That's what I was trying to get to. That's the easiest thing. A lot of times you can just uninstall and reinstall, and that DLL that happened to be corrupted or gone missing or become bad can resolve itself by reintroducing that software back on that system. The relationship between the main program and the component might be broken, so that's another reason to reinstall as well. But things happen. People want to know, so what caused the DLL to go corrupted? What caused it to go missing? There could be a number of things.
A good reason why. A lot of programs install a DLL and they claim that DLL for themselves when they install it, but because it is a dynamic link library, other programs also, when they install, may use that. They'll see that that DLL is already there and say, oh, it's already there, I don't need to install it. So later on, you go back through and install one of these programs and it takes out that DLL because it thinks it belongs just to it. And the next thing you know is the next program that wanted to use that DLL looks for it and it's not there anymore.
The fact, because it's being shared and it's shared across several different applications. Appreciate that, Chris. That summarize that situation. And like we just mentioned, if you can find it by name, you can reintroduce it to the system, or is it as easy as just reinstalling that application? Let's see here. System fails to start. Who we have here? Who have I picked on? I think I picked on everybody. Jose, are you available? I don't see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead and read this one for me, sir.
Can be caused by either symptom the service fails to start. Can be caused by either resource conflicts with another application or a misconfiguration of the service. The first place to start is the event viewer. Event ID of 7000 with a source of a cloud control manager or service control manager. Check the service console to make sure the service is set to start automatically. The solution to this problem could be to uninstall and reinstall the offending application.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody know how to get to the event viewer? Have we done that, or you know where it's located? I would
I don't think we did that.
Because can you share and do it? I feel like I will.
Yeah.
I'm not fluent with sharing of screens yet, so I want to be able to get there and make it look nice and neat. So if you don't mind.
That should show the control panel, like true statement.
Yeah.
Oh,
we see it.
Oh, the event over there.
You
Sorry,
can just
something
type
like that.
event and start. After you click start, you'll go to event viewer. There's also a way to get there from the command line, but I forget the MSC, the front part of it.
All right. I thought it was in here.
Is it not on the troubleshooting?
No, I'll find it. I'll tell you in a minute
I
where
got it.
it's at
I
in that
opened
part.
it earlier. I thought it was in there, but I have it. You just press event viewer and it's gonna come out. I thought it was inside here. Guess I'm wrong. Then we go into here. There we go. So inside the
Thank you.
event viewer itself, you'll be able to see the errors, warnings, information, audit, and failures in the last hours, 24 or days. A very high level summary of it itself. You you can obviously stretch it out and look at the details with ease depending on the actual case. Was it 7,000? Was it? It was saying anything with it?
Yes, it was
Mhm.
7,000.
7,000 pelado. But
Event
you
ID.
also have your Windows logs here, which are your these are the administrative events, your applications if they're giving you issues. You have your informational. I guess this only has informational. You have your actual security. If there's issues with security, it'll let you know if someone was attempting to log on and or give you issues, set up issues. Pretty simple. We go into the area. We can go in here and check the details to see exactly what it is, if it is the one that's giving me the issue. This would be like maybe something I probably uninstalled and is trying to use it or something. Any questions? So the event viewer has obviously a plethora of things that you can go look into, depending on obviously what is installed and the information that you have available to you. It'll give you the log pertaining to that area. Once again, at the higher view up here, it'll give you a summary of the events.
Thank you, sir. All right. Come here and go back in here. So it's a lot there. It's a lot of information there. I would encourage you to look so you can get comfortable in that space. We're going to talk about compatibility. So say, for instance, you have some older software. Diego mentioned it all the time, maybe some legacy software that's not required to be updated to perform optimally. And as your PCs and your department or industry is updating and it still wants to use that software, we could utilize it by using the Compatibility tab, which is located in property. So it can run that software as Windows XP on Vista or 7. So it has the ability to recognize, hey, I need to address or run it in this manner in order for it to run effectively. And a little trick there is sometimes you can set the application to run as admin in order for it to run properly in that mode, under the compatibility tab. So that's something that's kind of neat that will allow you to still use older pieces of applications on newer systems. Anybody that still play Oregon Trail, you still play Oregon Trail, man. You don't have to get rid of it. Although I'm pretty sure they have a newer version that's probably nicer because of all the different changes here. I always go with the banker. You never run out of money. Slow system performance. But I wish I didn't hit it because I wanted to see if we could talk through it. This defrag can help you out there. Virus could be roaming and causing havoc on your system. Hard drive space. Those are the 3 top that could be causing that system to perform at a very slower pace. Oh, and also just maybe it's time to address the memory that your PC is lacking. So those are a lot of different things that could be causing your computer not to perform well. And I knew you would have known this, so I wish I had the opportunity to go back and allow you to talk about it. But those are things that we can do. Also, make sure that you got the latest updates always. And if by any chance there are certain certain applications running, of course, we can always look at the task manager and address that usage from there to see, hey, I didn't open this and it's running at 89%. So let me kill that task. You can do it from task manager and then also using the CLI. But there's several reasons why your computer can be running slow, and we kind of know the gamut of those things, but those are some of the things you can check first. Didn't know how much smoother and nicer my computer ran after I did the defrag. It was noticeable. It wasn't like day or night, but it was noticeable. All right, we got application issues. Alvarez, back to you, sir.
Application issues. Problems with an application might be caused by the application, hardware, the operating system, data, other applications in conflict with the application, and the user.
Thank you, sir. I should have let Kaden read this one. Kaden, can you tell the class about what was going on with your camera and what was the cause?
Yeah, I be having another class before I come in with you guys. So I was on Zoom. And when I got out of Zoom class, I tried to log into my camera with you guys, but I couldn't. It was saying I need to check my camera settings. So I actually had to go into my task manager because my Zoom, even though I closed everything out, it was still running and using my camera. So
Was it Teams, not Zoom? It was Teams, right? Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, Teams. I'm sorry. I'm on Zoom with y'all. Yeah. So Teams.
So clearly, and it's not uncommon. Teams use certain settings, and when Kaylin tried to come back in here with Zoom, she literally had to force it to close because everything didn't close when she left her class. And that was the only way to get her camera to become operable with Zoom again. So knowing that Teams and Zoom, they both use video conferencing, they're utilizing some of the same information. And it's like, hey, we don't mesh well. Oil and water, it's probably not even oil and water. It's probably just the nice water, the +7 water, and the table tap water. So it's one of those issues, but one needs to get rid of to allow the other one to work. Also, if your operating system isn't meshing well with the application, that could be an issue for it not to work. And hardware, we talk about this. Everything has prereqs. So if you are trying to force your computer to run an application and you really don't have all of the metrics there to do it, then of course you're going to run into issue. And now I realize I hear something. Do I hear something? I'm running over a little bit.
I thought I heard that. I already ran to the
Hey,
ice cream truck, man.
the chat
I
is
thought him to
popping
give me
up
like a
like
5 seconds.
yeah, I started to see it. I felt it too. So I'm gonna stop right here and let everybody take a break. All right, we'll go to the next slide here. A lot of information on here, but very straightforward, I think. Steps for solving application errors. Always number one, talk to the client, the user, and see what's going on. If it's something, well, just get in the habit of, if you know you're gonna do some work on it, just back it up. It's always a safe measure to have it, and reboot that system. See if that resolves it. If it does, hooray. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Tell them to call you back if it does. Step two, we can check the web logs, event logs, things of that nature to see what's going on. And we also, if we have those stop code, we talked about it as well. If that exists, if some type of error come up, we can always go to the internet and address it that way. Step 3, considering that the data in the application is corrupted, easiest thing to do when that happens is uninstall and reinstall. That's a very, very, very known thing to do. And some people even may say, that's like, I won't say it's like cheating. It's like that's not a way not to do dig to get the issue resolved is by doing that. No, if you think about it, your goal is to try to decrease downtime when you're working. And if this is the best way to resolve that issue and it's not repeatable after you do it, then that resolved the issue. Don't let anybody tell you that you need to go through some type of entries and things of that nature. That's not the case. All right, step 4, consider outside interference. Okay, we talked about with that system slowing down, could be a virus. Resources could be low. We talked about other applications not meshing well, a service not starting, memory, hard drive being bad or corrupted. So there's several things that could go beyond just the application not working because it's not working. Something else could be causing it. Okay. And 5, consider Windows might be your problem. Always try to update your, keep your system up to date. That's something in a industry setting that you don't have to, you probably will be on a team that do it, or it's something that's required. So they always have the latest patches, updates going because they want to make sure they can decrease exploits. You can also check, do your system file checker, and hopefully it can verify issues and replace files if necessary. We talked about system restore as a way to also address issues. So that's something that we can do as well. So you have steps, and if you notice, it went from subtle to more involved as we went up, because you want to not try to go to thinking that it's the worst thing unless you're giving clues or hints that that's the case. So always do your due diligence, or working from the least invasive to the most invasive, depending on the situation. Let's see here. A hanging application. We talked about this, so this is something comfortable we can talk about. Let's see if I can get Ronald back up to bat.
Troubleshooting, hanging applications. When an application hangs, use the task manager to end it. If the task manager can't end it, use the task list and command. Task list command returns a process identify, PID, and task kill command uses the process ID to kill the process.
Thank you, sir. You don't have to do
use
that
task kill. Oh,
right, but I appreciate it. Simple enough. We talked about it. You can address it in Task Manager, which is the GUI or the graphical representation of going deeper and going to the CLI and actually typing in task kill, either using the name or the PID to force that to be shut down. There's more than one way to do it. You can always do it. You typically can always do it on the front side, be it with the GUI, or you have to go, into your CLI. Don't get too worked up with using the CLI. The more you use it, the easier it feels, the more comfortable you are in that environment. David, if you'll finish me off with this guy. You're off mute, but I don't hear you. No,
Can you
well,
hear me
I'm
now?
gonna tag. Yeah, I can hear. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know why it's been doing that lately. When a file fails to open, the application is not installed or the file extension is wrong. A program associated with a file extension is called a default program. Use the default programs window to change the program associated with a file extension. Data Sources Open Database Connectivity, ODBC tool, can be used to allow data files to be connected to applications they normally would not use.
Thank you, sir. Now, this has happened to us all. Maybe you get a Word file that ends in the wrong ending .docx, or you may get it can actually be a picture that doesn't end in the proper ending, and it won't open. All you have to do is you can just double click and change the extension sometimes, and that can resolve your issue. And have you ever went to you plug something in and you get that screen? Do you want to open with? Sometimes you may open it with the wrong application and cause it to not work. So you have to be careful with that as well. That can be the issue. You may try to open a Windows file, a picture using Word, and of course you're going to get this plethora of numbers and hieroglyphics because it's not it can't talk to it. It's not designed for it. Go right back out, open with Paint, and it works. So just be very careful with your extensions and what software your application you're using to open it, because that could cause the issue. It can also resolve your issue. So that's the gist of that slide there. And it happens. So, and I think I just kind of talked about this. When a file fails to open, change the program you use to open the file through the folder option. So this is how you're able to make sure that you're opening with the right program. And people will do it unknowingly sometimes, or it can be saved in the wrong extension sometimes. That's not uncommon as well. Sometimes you can trick something into saving it in a different file so you can bring it up later under a different extension if necessary. That's something that can happen too. So
Marvin, is this the ODBC or is this applet using the ODBC that it was talking about?
This is the ODBC. Correct me if I'm wrong, Diego.
This is open with ODBC is your capabilities to connect to external sources like databases or SQL servers, something that's external from your actual or normal that your actual. This is here you're open with. What is your default program to be able to open a given file?
So you was right on the front end, Marcus. This is not ODBC. This is just your built-in options that's available. That's internal, as Diego just mentioned.
How would you use ODBC then? Because I think I'm kind of confused on that.
All right, give me 1 second here. I would have to open it.
I need to unshare.
Yeah, go ahead and share. Let me see.
ODBC is usually like a access database thing. You connect different databases with ODBC. And Diego can add more if he wants to that.
Correct, and his question was more in reference to the use of it and what would be the. Here we are. So when I go and search for ODBC, it's going to give me this window when I run it. You have your actual user data sources. You have your actual system, your files that you can actually get to, drivers and other things. Now, as for the question you're asking, usually you'll be into this area. Given obviously whatever they give you, they may tell you it's going to be a system one or a user-based one. You can actually add, as we alluded to, directly from Microsoft Access, a CSV file, an Excel file, anything that has a tables, you can say format. You can go directly to a actual server or DBF files. You can go to SQL or anything like that if you want to also, depending obviously on the type of windows you have. Some of these things are shorter lists and some of them are bigger. Obviously the information that you're going to be adding there, for instance, let's say it would ask me for the name, what description I want, if I know the name of the server, but since I don't have a server, it won't let me proceed from this area. Again, information that they will provide to you. I believe there's also a test out lab that has that information in there, if I'm correct, that asks you to do that. I could be wrong though. I just wonder if it's something like that.
Mark, does that help you out? I think.
Yeah, thank you both.
And I have reached the end of my road, passing the baton to Kelly.
All right. When we are troubleshooting within Windows environment, we have a pretty good list of tools that we can utilize already built in prior to stepping out to outside sources. And as you can see here, you can use the BIOS for older machines, the UEFI for more updated, memory diagnostics, systems file check, logs, sys recovery options, repair disks, patches, boot to safe mode, which is a good one, MS config, and then your CLI. And up first, you'll see the BIOS UEFI is one of your primary places you will go to do a lot of diagnosis on your computer for various amounts of things, the CPU, fans, all sorts of things, different hardware devices attached to your computer. Below you see more of a nice representation of the GUI output for the more modern UEFI. And keeping your firmware up to date, this will notify you if it is not, which is kind of a mixed bag, as we have noticed, as we noted prior, that if you are going to update your firmware, you need to take a lot of precautions. Go ahead and set up a restore point, back up everything, get everything ready just in case. That way, if you end up having to do an update and something goes wrong, you don't lose all your files along with losing your motherboard, because of the, if you fail on a firmware update, you basically brick the device. All right. Next, memory diagnostic. Typically, if your Windows won't load, go into the memory diagnostics in your boot manager screen. This will kind of give you the ability to check it. If you can't boot from a hard drive, you can always do it from a DVD or the USB, and they will there will be a program allowing you to do a memory diagnostic and or repair your computer. This is definitely a good one to know for the A+ 1002, because I do recall there being questions on this, if not a performance-based request specifically on this. And the diagnostics will help you to go through the memory, see if there are any issues with it, and be able to identify it, and then for the vast majority of the time be able to solve that actual memory issue. Any particular questions with that? All right. System file checker. Essentially, protects your current files and cache memory. If you're having issues with any of these things, you can use the SFC to go ahead and verify these files and, reboot to see if there are any changes. You run SFC in the elevated command prompt, and then it can scan the files to see if there are any errors or if they're corrupted in any way. And then if that is the case, you can use DVD, USB to restore files. If the SFC won't run, you can do it, scan once, and it will do it one time for you the next time you actually reboot the system. Logs. Cannot stress the importance of logs and becoming familiar with them in diagnosing and discovering systems issues. The wonderful thing about computers is pretty much anytime anything is changed on a computer, it makes a log of it. And being comfortable searching through these logs, looking for particular types of events, they do have software that will aid in this process and will cluster certain events to make them easier to go through, as well as being able, especially if you're working in an enterprise environment where you have multiple computers in use, being able to sync the timelines of events happening so you can understand where these events started and be able to correctly triage them. Typically in the Windows environment, almost every log you can think of is kept within the event viewer. As we were talking earlier with Diego and Marcus, they showed us how to get there and basic overview of what it looks like. But never, never underestimate the power of utilizing your logs to be able to diagnose and or troubleshoot issues. Any questions within logs?
Kelly, if a user can't replicate the issue, would we go to the event viewer to try and see if, would there be something obvious that might stick out to IT people as to?
Depending on the event, yes, something obvious may pop out at you with the logs, especially if it is a reoccurring event. Like if something happens about 30 minutes after you start up the computer every single time, that would kind of give you a place to narrow down the logs and look. Now, if you're going in blind and you're just looking for some event that might have occurred in the last 3 weeks and you're combing through every single event, one, it's going to take a lot of time, and two, depending on your level of expertise, something may or may not pop out to you. And then the various different types of logs, especially if you're trying to look at the logs across multiple systems, if you're having similar events happen, you know, is it all caused because of a singular event? Like, is there something happening on the switch that's causing, you know, all these other systems to have issues? Or is it one system got corrupted, then another, then another, then another? And that's where the importance of syncing your times on the logs, as well as, you know, knowing what you're looking at. But again, it's going to depend on your level of experience, Marcus, whether it's going to jump out at you or not. And then being able to narrow that time frame down is pretty critical for singular events. Repetitive events, it's a little bit easier. Is there anything else you might want to add on that, Diego? Maybe you probably have a little more experience with that.
Oh yeah, you hit it right on the dot. Basically, you want to be able to get a time frame when you're going into the actual event viewer. If you notice, you had exclamation marks, you have a triangle where there's informational versus critical errors versus just regular per se errors. So you'll be able to sort by those type of errors. At the same time, it's very beneficial to know exactly a time frame. So it's much easier. If you saw that, that was a long list in the event viewer that I had. That's pretty difficult. Another thing is, if you know exactly which application, a lot of these applications have their own built-in errors that then you could find inside there, inside the event viewer. I'm not sure if some of you caught it. The Jabral video camera that I have, it has its own little reporting section, so it can be able to report any errors.
Does that answer your question, Marcus, roughly?
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. All right, system recovery options. You do have quite the list in here. On the left-hand side, you see the older version of Windows, what it used to look like, and then over on the right, you see what it currently looks like, more recent iterations of it. And if you're having major issues, you can do a repair, a restore, a recovery, or you can use a window memory diagnostic, as we were talking about earlier, to try to fix it, or the CLI. Does anybody know the difference between using an image and then a system restore. Anybody tell me the difference between that?
System restore returns you back to a earlier point that you saved in, I guess, like a little point in time when the system was stable. A system image is when you make a copy of it to a disk, like kind of like an ISO file.
Okay. Exactly. So you have a system image, which is something that would be preset, that would have all the settings and everything that you would typically need to have the system set up for yourself. And then the recovery would be from a prior point in time. And you can have multiple restore points that you can operate from, especially if you're doing a series of updates on drivers and stuff like that, you know, drivers and updates and all different kinds of software, because you don't necessarily know how these things are going to interact. So having multiple restore points every time before you do an update, you know, to a driver, to the firmware, it's hard, you know, any time you're doing any kind of update, do a restore point before you do it, just to kind of give yourself a little bit of protection. And then if you're doing multiple updates at one time, and you know, you don't necessarily know the problem with the interaction until later, then you can go back further and start your restore point from there. So that's where your note taking, as well as doing multiple restore points, are going to come in very handy. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I still don't understand system image recovery. Could you elaborate a little bit more?
Well, I think, remember we were talking about prior, we were doing like system deployment, operating system deployment, where you're wanting to set up a multiple systems at one time. So you would develop an image of that system, which would have all the settings and programs that you want to have installed on every computer you're going to do. So it makes it easier for you to do the typical installs. You remember us talking about that, like you could deploy it over servers, you could do it from a USB drive, but you're just presetting all of these images or all of this onto a image that you're going to deploy. Like you would have like a particular image you would use for operations, one you would use for accounting, one you would use for human resources, because they would utilize different functions, they would have different permissions, and they would need different software in many cases. And you wouldn't want to give everybody everything, so you would create images for each group. Does that make sense?
Quick question,
you could
Kelly.
do this for yourself too.
Is a system
Go
image
ahead.
is that like a clean install, or does it just reinstall just the system files?
I believe it reinstalls the system files with all the settings, but you can maintain older files. Am I wrong in that, Diego, or is that a clean install, wipes everything?
A system image, you can make, as he said, an image at any time. Therefore, let's say now I decided to install XYZ program, but I never had it. So now I can create a full image, which will be, we agree, is like an ISO file, some type of compressed file. So that if something ever happens, I can now come back with that. The exact same thing. Whatever's in there is in there, exactly how it is. Now, if you sys prep that image, in essence, now anything that's in there that is profiles are gone. It'll go and refresh it like if it was coming out of the box, which might be the confusion that you might have had earlier. When you sys prep the image, it basically sets it up, wipes everything clean. It leaves all programs and system files, all that is there, drivers, all that, but the actual user profile is usually gone.
Whenever I did it, Chris, we had a radiologist workstation image, and it was clean. It came across everything. We had to, once we put it on, let it run. Once I logged in the first time, that's when it started to, like Diego, recognize me as on the Active Directory for the first time. Or when I tried to make sure that the doctors, the ortho doctors, their credential was good for single sign-on, it was all first time. So, but the image was nice because we didn't have to figure out what they wanted. We knew their settings. We knew exactly what applications they needed to perform. So it was a quick thing. I just had to start it off and let it run. By the time it's an hour or less. I'm in and out, and that computer's it appears to have no issues, brand new, just like how we wanted it.
But it's also not a static thing where you just have that singular image and then you're good from then on. Anytime there are major updates and stuff like that, especially if you working in the healthcare industry where, you know, patient information, all stuff is paramount, you want to make sure that after these updates are made, the system is thoroughly hardened so that security is about as, you know, to the level you need it to be. And then you would update that primary image so that you could use that going forward. You have to do this almost every time you have major updates to the software. So you have somebody who do the testing and get all the settings where they need to be, and then you would replace that primary image with that newer one as software is updated over time.
Does the image have to be on some sort of external drive if you're dealing with your own personal laptop or PC? Because mine always tells me I can't save it to the same hard drive as the stuff's already on, which makes sense, but I just didn't know, is that, what are you supposed to do?
Actual requirement, but it is a good feature.
Partition, no?
Yeah.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
I believe you could put the image file or recovery image in a different partition, which is in essence a separate drive. Virtually, obviously.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a technicality. You couldn't save it on the same workspace because if that workspace becomes corrupted, then everything within it is corrupted. So the image would have to be in a separate space.
Okay.
So you got to do partition, an exterior drive, something like that.
Preferably, obviously, an external drive, because if the drive goes bad, once again, you're going to be with the same problem. Even though the partition didn't go bad, but the drive went bad, no, you're in the same boat.
Right. All right. System recovery options, startup repair. This will fix almost any problem you can get within a Windows boot environment. It will repair corrupted registry files and critical boot files, critical systems and drivers, roll back any non-working drivers, uninstall service packs and patches that aren't functioning properly. It'll even run check disk and even check the RAM on your computer to make sure it's compatible or not of different types as Marvin discovered, and be able to help fix all of these issues, or at least give you a good handle on what the problem is so that you can go forward and fix it. Any questions on startup repair? Mm-hmm. System restore, as we were talking about earlier, this kind of just goes over it again, gives you a little visual of what it looks like within the system. As you can see, there are multiple restore points within this where you can set it up. You know, you can do this, like you can go ahead and pre-schedule it so it automatically takes system restore points. You could do it like once a day, once a week, once a month, once a quarter, or multiple cycles along those lines, just so that you could go back to a backup, you know, a week ago or even a day ago, depending on how you want it set up within the environment you're working. For a personal computer, you may not do it that often because you're not changing a whole lot. You know, but for an enterprise environment where you have, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of people constantly changing things on the system, or downloading files for some unknown reason, or trying to install things in their work computers without authorization, all that fun stuff, you may want to set these up to go once a week, once a day, or something along those lines, just to kind of help protect the system a little better.
Kelly, is it fair for me
Any
to assume?
questions? Go ahead.
Is it fair for me to assume that a system image will almost always be a larger pile of data compared to a system restore?
Absolutely is.
Okay.
Because a system image is like a snapshot of everything that is on the system at that given point. And then it's stored in a safe location away. So it wants all the data, everything that's there. And then you got a restore point, which is kind of where the system is taking a quick snapshot of where it is at a particular time. And it can jump back to that point in time and negate whatever has happened since then. Is that a fair assessment, Diego? Or?
The system restore won't fix problems with, as an example, Excel. Excel became corrupted. Now you have a problem with a driver you just installed and the system files pertaining to that are corrupted. There you can come back over here and go ahead and go back in time, and it'll basically bring you up in that configuration of the Windows OS. An image is the entire thing. But once again, if I don't have a backup of my actual documents, it's going to bring me exactly to that spot with everything, applications, everything will be exactly how it was in that given time. So if I don't have backup of any of my actual documents, they're all gone. But it will bring me back up, obviously. That there is no doubt.
All right. Any questions with system restore? All right, system image recovery, we just talked about this one as well. Here's kind of the graphical representation of what that utility looks like within the system, where you could go in and take an image of your current computer or a system you're working on, and basically take a snapshot and save it for yourself for future use if you need it. Repair disk. See here. Alvarez, can you help us out with this one, please, sir?
All right, repair disk. Repair disk allows you to recover a computer and bring it back to the point where it was when it was new. It can only be used to reinstall the operating system. It can only be used to reinstall the operating system on the PC. The Windows Backup and Restore tool allows you to create a system repair disk in Windows 7. To create a system repair disk, follow these steps. Step 1, open Backup and Restore by clicking the Start button, clicking the Control panel, and clicking System and Maintenance, and then clicking Backup and Restore. Step number 2, in the left pane, click Create a System Repair Disk, and then follow the steps. If you're prompted for an administrator password or confirmation, type the password or provide confirmation.
Now, again, like we were mentioning earlier, CompTIA loves to utilize this one, especially in 10.02. So they may not ask you to create a repair disk, but they may ask you to use one and what you would need to do once you have one and do the actual repair. So definitely something to keep in mind. Any questions with regards to that? Hold on, that's system's frozen up. 1 second.
think Kelly might be experiencing some issues, so I'm gonna
I'm
jump
partially here.
Okay, you froze up on me, sir. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'm partially here.
Okay, okay.
My Zoom partially shut down. I lost everything, and then it as far as Zoom, and it's reloading.
You got to stay off
Everything's
Microsoft
still hidden.
Teams. Yeah, we can hear you.
I know, right? All right. Please help me with this one. Chris, can you please help me out with this one while my system is rebooted?
Windows 3264-bit patches. Guidelines when reading error messages related to Windows. The term x86 refers to 32-bit CPUs and operating systems. All CPUs in PCs today are hybrid processors. The term x86-64 refers to these processors and also may refer to a 64-bit OS. The term IA64 refers to 64-bit Intel processors. The term x64 refers to 64-bit operating systems. For 32-bit installation of Windows, must get a 32-bit patch, a device driver, or an application. For 64-bit installation of Windows, must get a 64-bit device driver. An application could be 32-bit or 64-bit.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, and x86 will come up a lot, especially if you're looking for the files where these are maintained, or if you're in the command line interface. That's where you would look for it. And then most applications, yes, they try to have a 32-bit and a 64-bit version of those particular applications to get as much use out of them as possible. Any questions or comments on this particular one? All right, boot to safe mode. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had to do this. If you have it where the system isn't functional, if you can't, like if it goes to the Windows splash screen and everything goes black, if your graphics driver or your graphics card fails to work, any of these things can make the system almost inoperable in a regular setting. So what you would want to do is to boot up into safe mode so that it basically prevents almost any of the hardware or additional applications from starting up. And then you can kind of go in and figure out if it is your graphics card or something like that, or see what is in the startup menu that may be causing the problem. Something new might have gotten added. You can go in and change what programs are initiated upon startup so that the system can actually function properly and come back into a normal setting. Any questions on this? Basically, it only boots up the most basic things, and then you can make whatever changes necessary if your system is inoperable on a regular boot. All right. Faison, can you help us out with this one?
The msconfig utility helps troubleshoot startup problems by allowing to selectively disable individual items that normally are executed at startup. It works in most versions of Windows, although the interface window is slightly different among versions. There is no menu command for this utility, so use start, run, type msconfig, and press enter.
Excellent. As Diego is fond of mentioning, they love to move things around in Windows. So, I mean, whatever folder you know it's in this time, especially for settings and stuff like that, it will likely be changed and moved somewhere else. The event viewer, all that stuff, they tend to shuffle all that stuff around every time they send out a new update. But msconfig you know, obviously is a great one to be able to check and see what's starting up when your computer is starting up, because if it takes a very long time, you probably have a boatload of applications that are booting up every time you start your system. Almost anything you install, be it like Dropbox or, you know, new versions of Excel or any kind of new application you put on there, they're going to go ahead a lot of times and add themselves to that startup menu so that they can boot up and be ready to go whenever you need them. But the result of that is when you add a whole bunch of these applications, it really slows down the process of getting your computer up and running. Any questions with regards to msconfig? All right. And command prompt, or the CLI. This is probably one of the most powerful tools in the system. You can do pretty much anything you want to from here. And get to it, go to the search menu, type in CMD, and you can go ahead and run. And then I believe you have to right click on it in Windows 10 to run it with administrative privileges if you want to get elevated access to it. So in a enterprise environment, this is something you definitely want to prevent your, you know, people utilizing your systems from having that access. You would only want them to have very basic tools within command line, being able to ping, you know, things like that. You don't necessarily want them to be able to format drives, you know, or anything to that nature. And so you want to have them to have very limited access so you can turn off the administrative level changes that they're able to make. When we were at FSCJ here in Jacksonville, when I was doing the A+ program, they had a whole bunch of stuff turned off in the command prompt that we were not allowed to do. And we had to actually practice all that stuff on the lab computers because they just did not want us having access to that in their systems. But definitely you want to get familiar with a lot of the commands that we listed in the prior maintaining Windows. Play around with them, get comfortable with them, because it is very likely you will be utilizing on the A+ as well as, you know, when you get out into the wild in the IT environment. Any questions with regards to command prompt? Mm-hmm. Yep, so you got the rules. All right, probably a good one to go through. Ronald, can you please help us with this one?
Optional additional content, symptoms, limited connectivity. When you have limited connectivity issues, the Windows operating system will display a yellow triangle on the icon for the network in the lower right corner of your screen. This typically means you do not have access to the internet. And the first step is to run ipconfig all. Review this info to ensure that you have valid IP address and it is on the correct network. You can also ping a local host, which is 127.0.0.1. You could ping the default gateway, which is a router. Ping another device on the network. Ping a host on the internet, such as Google's DNS server, 8.8.8.8. And the possible causes: static IP addresses misconfigured, router problems, external internet problem, DNS problem, and third-party software problem.
Excellent. So if I get a IP address of 169.254, what's the problem?
A PIPA.
You are not connecting to the DHCP server.
Absolutely. And typically when you're doing your ping, I mean, ping is, you know, it's a simple tool, but it's a powerful tool to kind of let you know where that connection issue is. So you start at the very, like the closest point possible, you know, you ping yourself, you know, and that's where the loop back is wonderful. So you ping yourself, that lets you know that your, you know, your network card is working. And then, you know, ping your switch and your and then ping the router. So you're working out in steps. Ping somebody else on the same network as you so that you can see if you can see them, you know, because sometimes you might be able to talk to them, but they might not be able to talk to you. There might only be one, you know, one-way visibility. So ping is a great tool to help diagnose this. Diego, you had something you wanted to show?
Your question?
No, I said, well, because you jumped off of the screen, so I figured you wanted to show something.
I do apologize. I did not mean to hit that button. Is that better?
I thought you wanted to show
Nah,
something with regards
I
to
have
ping.
no idea why. Sorry about that.
Okay. And then, so if you're trying to talk to the network and you have intermittent connection issues where it's, you know, sometimes you can talk, sometimes you can't, you know, that would lead you to static IP. You can see if you have a problem with your router. If you can talk to your router, that's great. And then once you can talk to your router, you have a good IP address, then you start pinging outside your network and seeing if you could actually talk to other things. Like, you know, try to ping Google, www.google.com. Can you talk to them? Yes, great, you're getting a ping. Okay, well, what if you're not? If you're not getting a ping, try pinging the IP address to see if it's a DNS issue. So, I mean, the ping is a very powerful tool in diagnostics to let you know what you can and cannot talk to. All right. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Right on time for lunch. Give me 1 second here.
Pretty much the end of this show, my friends. At this point, we should be able to identify the common issues that come up within Windows and the common troubleshooting applications or applets to be able to diagnose the actual issue, describe how to resolve the common issues, and the appropriate tools be within CLI or within the actual administrative tools. And that, my friend, is the ice cream truck. Questions, concerns before we go on break? Nope. See you guys after break. Stopping the recording here.